Hi guys, thanks for coming back and watching another video of mine. Happy to have you here. I am doing it's a couple of spreads in this one. I've been catching up this last week. I've been filming, but the uploading part of the process has taken me a bit of time, getting things from my phone to the laptop and then editing and all the rest, so apologies for the delay. I have done, I think this one's a bit bitty, but I've done my best to try, and I think there's a few outfit changes that go on as well in this one. So I've been largely inspired by Amity Bloom on YouTube. If you haven't seen her videos, you need to check her out if you like this kind of floral vintagey style. Her work is just lovely, and I have taken a lot of what I do from her. These printables, so this floral paper here that I'm just sewing some lined paper onto, is one of her printables. Actually, I've got a few of hers now. I was watching some of her videos and she inspired me, so I downloaded some of her printables. I thought it's only right. So I've just created this sort of like journaling tag. I'm going to glue this in on my first spread. I added this, I don't think you've seen this yet, this is my initial page, so I fabric tacked a bit of that wallpaper onto the side as a tab, and I've used a vintage floral image and one of Amity Bloom's printables, which I've turned into like a kind of like a book plate, I guess, and I've stamped 2020 on there because obviously it's my journal for this year. So this is my journaling for this day, and in just a moment I'm going to do just a bit of collaging over to the left. So this journaling is basically about the year and what I hope to achieve, and what this how much I love how my journals come together, and etc, etc. So just a little spiel about that, not really an actual journal entry, if you like. And I'm just going around the edge of this to make it look a bit more vintage with this, I think it's called Old Paper Distress Ink from Tim Holtz. It doesn't really look like it's doing much. You can see the colour of it is basically the colour of tea dye paper. But just in a second I'm going to hold it against just the regular printed, the straightforward printed image, the untouched. And here you can see just on that edge there's that slight change, a slight little bit of staining. And it just gives it that little bit of, that more of a vintage feel, that old paper feel. So it's just kind of taking it up a level from just printing it out. And I'm going to glue that in on that pocket page. I did have an envelope. I'll show you the envelope in this video that I've made, which again is one of Amity Bloom's printables. I did have it in this pocket, but this pocket is very shallow, so it just kept flapping about and it was driving me crazy. So I put it somewhere else in the journal, but I'll go into that when I get to that bit. I've been to the craft shop nearby, and I've got these buttons, these sort of cornflower blue buttons, and this white and gold one, so I'm going to stick that on. And I've got this lace, and this lace, and this one. I've just had a look at them against the page, see how I feel. This is a letter. This is an invoice or a receipt for an optician. It's a vintage one. I got this from the antique shop that we have nearby, and I'll probably use that. I'm not going to use that in this spread, but I'm just showing you. So I picked that up on that day. I'm just fishing through for another button. I knew that I had some sort of opal-y buttons, but I don't actually end up using that. I end up using this little piece here, which I got from the Works of all places here in the UK quite recently. So, and they are opal, sort of opalescent on top, which is what I wanted. And when I've got these sort of chunky buttons, if they're plastic, I do like to cut the back off just so it adheres a bit nicer. I mean, you could just sew it onto the lace, but I didn't want it to have too much movement, so I prefer to glue mine on with fabric tack. I do like to add some thread to my buttons though. As much as I don't generally sew them on, I do like to add a little something, and I've got this wax thread that I'm adding here just because that was to hand. So you can use whatever you've got, you can use twine or whatever, or just leave them be. I like to just add a little something, sort of faux stitch if you like. Most of my journal's faux stitched, so the buttons shouldn't be any different, right? And I'm just going to place this on the side here. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I've just put them where I think they look nice, just to embellish that side a little bit. So when you close the book, you can see them poking out, and it just adds that bit of prettiness on the edge. So on the left there, I've been playing around with the placement of some pieces that I've had in my stash, and I'm going to glue them down as they are because I'm happy with how they are here. I'm layering these two pieces together. This was inspired by Amity Bloom again. She did some clipboard sort of ephemera, I think, and she kind of layered two pieces together to almost give the binder clip illusion at the top of the page. So I just liked that idea, so I added that here. And I like that the textured card kind of ties in on both pages. That textured cardstock I did myself. I've got some embossing folders. I think I'll show you a bit later on in the video. I've got some new embossing folders from Hobbycraft. So I've got a gift card for there for Christmas. And I treat myself to a few bits. And yeah, so I was playing around doing this cardstock, and I just love embossed. I love texture. I love texture in most things, in homewares, in sort of wall decor. I'm not overjoyed by pattern, but to make it can get quite busy quite quickly. But I think when you start layering textures, you can really get crazy with it. This is a die here. This die set by Avery L that I got from Seven Hills Crafts in the UK. I think it's a bit more readily available in the US, and it's like some frame dies, and I've just sort of positioned it over these flowers which fit perfectly. Here's the embossing folder that I used for that cardstock. Yeah, so the dies fit over this frame perfectly, fit over the florals perfectly, and they just look really nice, and I really like the way that's coming together. So this is the inner part of that frame. Obviously you've got the frame bit that can go around it, but I've just stuck this down. And I'm just adding a few different textures. I do like patterns in my junk journal. I do like the different, but they have to be quite cohesive. So this will be quite floral heavy. I don't always do the same thing, and I think as my journals progress throughout the year, there'll be different themes and things that go on, so they won't always be like this. But this is my personal one, and this is what I'm feeling at the minute, so it's what I'm going with. I'm working on a few more journals at the minute, so you shall see those coming soon. I'm working on sort of putting them together because I don't want them to be just basic journals like this one is. I quite like the idea of doing some things a little bit differently, so I'm working on that basically. And I think that's this page together, so that's the front, that's this page, and here is the letter that I've already created. So I'm going to give you a little show of this. I thought I did a video on putting this together, but I didn't. But I will do more of these, so I will show you how I put this together. Amity Bloom has one on her channel, so you can go and check her out to see how she's put one of these together. I think she does a bit more of an extravagant one than I've done here. This is quite basic. As I say, I will be doing more because I've got this printable to download now. And what I'm essentially going to do, I've had the idea of, because we're going through a bit of a journey at the minute. Things are a bit rough over here, and having a bit of a rough time. So, not to dwell on that. The reason I'm sharing that is because what I want to try and achieve, because I'm going through this rough time, and I'm essentially using this journaling to, keep myself going and to keep pressing on and looking forward, and the light's at the end of the tunnel now, and I want to crack the other end. So this basically is a letter to myself. It says "Dear me," and all the rest of it. And essentially, I've written a letter to myself for a year's time, and just kind of saying I hope you're in a better place. Well done. Thank you for all you've done. For basically getting us. My gosh, I'm going crazy. For getting me through this. So it's just a little letter that I can look back on in a year's time. And there's the pocket, which it doesn't end up living in because it's annoying in there because it just keeps falling out. Anyway, yeah. So I want to use this journal as sort of letters to myself theme. So, which is a good one if you're like me and you're on a bit of a journey and you kind of need to keep yourself going. I'm kind of thinking ahead in the future. I'm almost talking to myself. in a year's time. So I want to look back on this, I want it to be pretty, I want it to be something I want to use at the minute, because you know, when things get a bit rough, you don't always feel inspired to do these things. So that's sort of where I'm going with this. Anyway, onwards, I am going to print onto some fabric here, and how I do that is I've got this piece of sort of plain white fabric. It's not heavyweight, it's nothing fancy, it's just what I have in my stash. And how I get that to go through my printer here is I add some double-sided tape at the top and bottom of the page. I should have added some in the middle as well. You'll see why when it comes out the printer, but I missed out doing that for whatever reason. So double-sided tape, top and bottom, and then I've ironed this fabric, not that you can tell, but I have ironed it. It was a lot worse than this. And I'm going to place it over that sheet, and I'm going to trim off the excess fabric. And I literally run it through the printer, obviously making sure it's the right side down to be printed on. I've got a Canon printer, and you have to face the paper down to print on that side. So if it's photo paper, you put it glossy side down. So I'm going to put this in the printer, fabric side down, and it will run it through my printer and print the image onto the fabric instead of onto the paper. And it's a lovely image. I really, really like this image. I've used a bit of it in this journal. I don't know where I'm going to use the rest of it. I just wanted to have a go at it. When I was in my craft room, I found an image and I thought that would look lovely as a piece of fabric. So I will use that somewhere. I'm hoping to use it on the cover of a journal because it's so pretty. I love how it's turned out. So there's that. So I've now got a fabric piece, and here it is coming out the printer. I didn't show the whole printing process because it can be quite slow. But you can see it here, it comes out the printer absolutely fine, and look how pretty that is. Absolutely stunning, I love it. At the bottom, so you just tear it off the bit of paper. At the bottom there's a bit of a mark where it's sort of dragged in the printer, which is why you need a piece of double-sided tape in the middle as well. So I'm going to just trim that piece off. This is two images put together, so I cropped the bottom image so the pattern doesn't quite line up. That's intentional. I wanted to fill the A4 sheet with this image, but I didn't want to make the flowers, I didn't want to lose any part of the image, so I didn't want to just make the image so big that it covered the page. So I'd rather, you know, have like sort of 1.5 images than one giant image, because it's just so pretty. So I'm cutting it down there where the two images meet. And I'm going to set the larger one aside to use somewhere where it can be showcased, because I just absolutely love these colours. And I just found this image on the internet, on Google, and I've saved it to a Word document for future use, which is obviously fine for personal use. So I'm having a play around. I've got my little tin of pieces, and I'm just kind of working out what I want to do with this spread. I knew what I wanted to write, I knew what I wanted to document, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to actually do. So I found this piece here, which is the music paper, and I've just folded a little hinge, and I'm going to adhere that to this part of the page. This bit of journaling is a bit more personal, so I didn't want it to be sort of showcase, I didn't want it to be readily available, so I'm sort of hiding it underneath a flap, so you have to lift it, and you know, if you were just flicking through the journal you probably wouldn't know it was there. Do you know what I mean? So I'm hiding it here, I'm sticking it here, and I've just used a typewriter font that I downloaded from the internet. I have actually just ordered a vintage typewriter, which I'm super excited to get, to do some proper typewritten pieces. Oh, I can't wait because I will be making journals to sell, and I'm going to do the like little typewriter pieces in there, some proper vintage typewritten sort of sentiments and things for people to use in their journals, just to make it more personal. And it's so nice just to have that proper little piece of vintage like text, if you like, with the actual ink and the sort of imperfection of the actual ink. And how is that? So I'm going to stop rambling about that. I'm super excited. So I'm just kind of now really decorating this page. I have a bit more journaling to do, but I'm going to decorate first and just journal where there's a space. number 3 for this video, aren't we? I was originally thinking of adding this fabric over the journaling and having like a fabric flip. That sort of gave me a little bit too much excess space on the page that I didn't need. And I like how this looks at the bottom here, and adding these in, and I nearly went for this, but yeah, it didn't end up that way. And actually in hindsight I should have trimmed these strips a little bit thinner, but we grow. We'll learn. And I just didn't want that flapping over that flap, you know, it just is a bit flappy. So I decided to add it in at the top here, so it kind of bridges the 2 pages together and goes over to the second page. I'm only using, with my Christmas journal, I did want to do 2-page spreads. Every day I had a 2-page spread. Whereas my personal journal, I don't follow that rule. This spread here didn't warrant 2 pages, so I did a 1-page spread, and then later on in this video you will also see me do the other page, which is complete, and which is where I'm up to now. And I'll be journaling more as we go along. But the year, I'm just really enjoying using my journal, but I don't want to fill it all up in a month and then have like a million journals for 2020. So I need to remember to just calm down a little bit. So I'm going to start making some more journals. So those videos will be coming soon. So there'll be a big mix up of journal with me's and actually creating more junk journals and trying out some different techniques and some different styles. So if that interests you, please subscribe and we can do that together. I'm going to stick this fabric down with UHU, is that what you call it? Glue. It seems to work pretty fine. This is pretty lightweight fabric, so it seems to be working okay. I don't want to use fabric tack on everything, and with this sort of more sheer fabric you can sometimes see the lines of fabric tack underneath, which I didn't want, so I've literally just stuck it, because it's inside the journal, it's not going to be, you know, massive wear and tear on it, so the glue seems to be doing the job just nicely. Here's some of my embossing folders. That top one I showed you already. This one is a new one. It's an emboss and cut, and it cuts this lovely little floral frame, which I'm excited to use. I think that'll be nice as a pocket. There's a rose patterned one, which I think is just so beautiful. And this bit more, I don't know what you call it, scripty maybe, I don't know, viney, I don't know. Just another pretty one. I got these Tim Holtz tokens, typed tokens, and I've got a few of the words out that I specifically want in my journal, but I do love all the words. I'm going to add one of those to this spread, because sometimes in a spread you just want particular things in there, so you find a way to make it work. I also ordered some wallpaper samples from Wallpaper Direct. I don't love them all. I love this blue one, absolutely stunning, this one. You can kind of see on the back what wallpaper it is. You can't really see that at all, it's really faded, but I love that blue one. I don't love this one. It looked a lot nicer on the website. I liked the sort of stronger colours and the neutral background. I don't love it in person. Neither do I love this one. I think maybe the piece that I got of this one wasn't too great. Obviously it doesn't have a lot of image on it. This one is okay. I'll use that for little tags or something, journaling cards. This one is my absolute favourite. Look how beautiful that is. That's by Ralph Lauren. It would look lovely just as a page tipped into a journal or a pocket, or I'm actually thinking I'm going to use that on a cover because it's just so beautiful. This one is the Anaglypta that's actually on my inside cover, and I ordered some more of that one because I love that pattern, hence why it's on my inside cover. This one again, I think it's Anaglypta, textured paper, yeah, Anaglypta. And this one is also very beautiful. So I originally pulled out that yellow cardstock just to have a play around with the new embossing folders. It was in my scrap drawer, and I just love how the yellow looks, how bright it is. It's like a lemony yellow, it's just lovely. So I wanted just to add a slight little bit of a snippet in here somewhere, and I just chose to add it in there. So here I'm sort of explaining in my head that the letter is no longer in there, it's clipped onto this page here. And I've added that floral image behind the window because I thought it gave it a bit of something extra. And I've also added a clip here. These are sparkling clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. And I love these, and I do seem to just hoard them because they're really difficult to get over here in the UK. And I love them, they're so nice. And I have actually found some alternatives, but they're not in stock. So when I'm notified that they're in stock, I shall order those and compare them to these, and hopefully they're the same. Hopefully. This is a bit of one of the wallpapers that I showed you, and I'm just cutting out this smaller floral image just to add in here because it's pretty. And it's like in a nice linen sort of effect background. So I'm not too fussed about cutting it out perfectly. I'm just fussy cutting around it. I'm having to play around again with how I want to lay out my spread. Using the Inca Gold here to do the edge of this piece. I used my sort of paper edger trimmer row X-cut thing to do, and it's just a little scrap piece. And I love this gold, this Inca Gold. It's like a champagne gold. It's just really pretty. I don't think I actually ended up using that on this spread, but I left it in anyway to show you that you can, you know, how easy it is to change something up. So I originally intended to sew this create token at the top here, and then I was looking at this embossed image and thought, do you know what, I think I can do something here instead. Some stitching, and I'm really happy with how this has turned out. So being inspired by my L on the front, I decided to do some embroidery on this embossed piece, and I'm using the embossed image with just one little cluster of the sort of little rose cluster to create to do the embossing, and not thinking about it, I think I could just push the needle through, which you could do, but I'd end up deforming the card stock, and I don't want to do that. So I've got my really messy craft mat, my well-loved craft mat. I think it's the very first craft mat I ever got, which was about 20 years ago, and it's still going strong. And I've got my awl, and I'm creating the hole. So what I'm doing on the rose, I'm going to embroider a rose. I'm doing a hole in the centre, and I'm doing 5 holes around the edge. It has to be an odd number. You could do as many holes around the edge. It depends how big your rose is if you were thinking of doing this. So you need 5, you need an odd number of holes. I've got 5. And what you're going to do is you're going to come up through the middle, and you're going to go out to each hole. So you'll see in just a moment. I'm a bit clumsy with this. I'll move that green mat out of the way because it's easier to see. So you're going to come up through the middle and go out to each edge. And then come up through the middle and go out to the next one and come up. So you'll end up with 5 prongs, if you like. And that will be the sort of bones of our rose. Right, it's going to be pretty hard, I think, for you to see what it is I'm doing here. But what I've done is I've come back up, so wherever you end up, you want to then come back up through the middle, and that's where you're going to start. And what you do is you go under and over and under and over with your thread. So I'm kind of just going under each second prong, for lack of a better term to use. I don't know what the official term is. I'm just going under every other. And because you've got an odd number of prongs, they will end up overlapping. So on one row you'll go under, on the next row you'll go over, and the next row you'll go under that particular prong, and then over and under. So you end up, I'm trying to show you a bit better. I'll probably do a bit more of an in-depth video on this if that's something that interests you. I might do, again, when I hit my subscriber mark, that I've kind of, my little goal that I've set for myself. I'd like to do a giveaway, and I said in my previous video that I think one of those embroidered initials would be a nice thing to give away. So if I do the embroidered initial, if that is something that you guys want, then I will do a tutorial on making it, or at least doing parts of it. It's not a hour, 2 hour project, so I'll show you each different technique that I use, let's say. And obviously you can then put yours together however you'd like. So I'm going under and over and under and over. I'm just doing that until I'm happy. When you're embroidering on paper or cardstock, you've got to be wary of your holes, so I'm doing it until I'm happy that the holes aren't too visible, and I'm just trying my best to cover those in at the end. So I've tied it at the back, trimming off the excess, and here you can see what the rose looks like up close. It looks really effective, really, really nice. What I'm going to do now are the little flowers, the 3 flowers that surround the rose, and I've chosen white for this. So I've made a hole in each of the centres of the flowers, and I'm going to do a French knot, which I found rather tricky because it wasn't taut. So I just grab a bit of washi tape, stick that loose end down with that tape, and that allows me that sort of anchorage that I need to do the French knot. And I'm using the embroidery floss as is, guys. You can separate the fibres. Some, if you into embroidery, if you know a bit about it, you'll notice that some patterns will say to use, say, 3 strands or 4 strands. I'm just using the full wad of strands. I think it's about 6 strands. So just so it allows me to build this up quicker. And it just gives me more of that dimension that I was after. So you can see here that I'm doing the little French knots, and some of it is off camera. I do apologise. It's very fiddly, very difficult to do on this tiny little bit of paper. Normally you have a big ring and it's a bit more sturdy and a bit easier to hold. And there is the 3rd knot going in. It just adds a little bit of fun, and I'm just going to tie those off at the back as well. Here's that embroidery up close. How pretty does that look? Really, really chuffed with how that's turned out. It's so nice. I cut out the rest of the process because that's not what this video is about. And if you'd like to see more of the embroidery process, then please let me know. I'm happy to do like a small floral like this, a bit more, a bit closer, more up close, so you can actually see what it is I'm doing. If that's the sort of thing you'd be interested in adding into your journals, then by all means, I'm happy to show you how I do it. I am toying around with the placement of this. I liked the idea of it sticking off the page so I could see it when the journal was closed, just to showcase it. So I'm going to trim off the edge and just see how that looks, but I don't go this in the end because I didn't want it to get ruined, with it sticking out the edge of the page. And I also, when you close the book, because it's so near to that fabric, that lace on the left hand side there, like, it just completely covers it when it's closed, so it was just not worthwhile having it poking off the edge. So I'm just going to stick it onto the page as is at the bottom there. I'm going to add a little tab here with this piece of lace to layer underneath that embroidered bit, and I'm going to add the create token to this because I just think it's fitting with the piece that I've just created. So I'm sticking this down and I'm going to sew that create token onto this tab with the sort of eucalyptusy colour embroidery floss that I use for the twigs on that image, so the 2 colours will tie in together, and this is my favourite colour from the piece, so it's rather fitting that I use that colour. I'm just going to pass it through the hole in the token a couple of times and then when both pieces of thread are at the back, I shall just simply tie them in a knot to hold that in place. So I'll glue this piece down with some fabric tack because I want it to really stick down well, and I'm going to hold it. I do hold it for a little while just to make sure that it's not sticking up at all where the embroidery is, because it's quite close to the edge, and just to make sure it's really nice and secure, especially because it's on the edge of the page. And just to fill in some more of that space on the left hand side, because I don't need all this journaling space for this entry, I'm just cutting out a piece of this recipe. I've just torn out a page that I like, and I like the look of the ingredients list there, so I'm going to use that, and I'm just going to tear it off and add it in. I think I adjust it a little bit when it comes to sticking it down, just to showcase some more of that embossed paper, that cardstock off. I want it to cover as little as possible, and I'm going to use that old paper. Is it the old paper one, or is it the antique? No, I think it's the old paper. Yeah, it's the old paper, the one I used on the floral piece at the beginning of the video, just to add that little bit of staining to the edges where I've torn the paper. It picks the colour up really nicely. You can see it against the white backdrop of my craft desk. So here's where I've decided actually I don't want it to cover that much of that blue piece, so I'm just going to tear a little bit off. And I tried to pull it up, but it was already stuck really well, because I thought I could just layer that over the top of this one, but I just tore that piece off instead at the bottom, and I'm just going to use what's left on my dauber to stain where I've just, like the fresh tear where I've just torn it. And you can see here as well, it really showcases on this, because I've used this tea stained paper behind it, that the colour of this paper is the colour of tea stained paper. It really is a good one to invest in, especially when you've got really white paper like this. The vintage photo can be quite harsh on this, so the old paper distress ink is the one that I would reach for a lighter piece, to give it some distressing that's not too like, whoa, that's got brown ink around the outside of it. And I'm just going to glue that down with some glue and layer up my wallpaper piece that I cut on the top of that, and that finishes this spread. I will do my journaling, and I will just show you a quick overview of this spread right at the end. I won't bore you with watching me do some more writing in this video. So thank you all so much for being here, for watching my videos, and for the support that I've had from each and every one of you so far. It is appreciated beyond what you could ever imagine. So I hope to see you in the next video. I'm looking forward to doing it. I'm having so much fun with this. I'll give you a quick overview of this spread, and I will leave you for now. So until next time, take care guys, bye.